Hey guys, it's Brett. Thanks for stopping by my channel. So we are almost to the end of the year. So everyone everywhere is posting their best of lists. I'm certainly one to jump in on that game. I have 20 books that I want to share with you that were my favorites of 2023, but don't panic because I'm only doing half of them today and I'll do the other half next week. So I'm not going to make you sit through an endless video. And I just want to preface this by saying, I loved all these books, and aside from like my top maybe four, which were my absolute favorites, a lot of these could be completely interchangeable. So I don't want you to think because this is 11 through 20, I thought they were less than, or they were, just, almost as good. I think all these books are really great and were very memorable to me and why they're my favorites of 2023. So with that being said, let us get started and talk about books 11 through 20. All right, so I have no particular order on any of this. I'm just going to dive in. All right, the first is Big Swiss by Jen Began. This completely surprised me, and I will say I listened to this on audio, and I loved it so much I went out and bought a copy of it. It's crazy. This is about a transcriptionist who works for a therapist, and as she's listening to one of these sessions with this woman, Big Swiss, she finds herself falling in love with her, and she sets out to meet her. And what happens? It is crazy and bawdy and crass at times. I loved it. And I also thought the readers, the actors who were reading the book, I can say specifically the one I remember is Joy Osmansky, who's a wonderful actress, but do a fantastic job. If you're looking for something that's out of the box, that's wacky, really, really, really funny, check it out. Okay, this next one I almost looked over because I actually read this at the end of 2023 because I got a galley of it early, which I found on Pango. But it did come out like the first week of January. And when I was going back over everything, it's all that, it's kind of like movies, something you see in the very beginning of the year, you completely forget. And then the crush of at the end of the year when all of the big heavy hitters come out, you forget about it. And when I was really going back, I thought this was an amazing book, and it really had stuck with me. And so I thought it's so worthy and deserves more praise here at the end of the year. And that is Age of Vice by Deepti Kapoor. If you would have said to me, I was going to be completely enthralled, which is what it feels like essentially the Godfather in India, I would have been like, you're crazy. But I loved this. This is the first of, I believe, a trilogy, if not at least a duology. So it is captivating, breathtaking. There are parts of it that are so brutal. This is a book that you can't get entirely too invested in any one character because they could die. But I loved it so much. Can't wait to see where this goes. So, all right. Next up is The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue. As I was saying on my last video about Caroline O'Donoghue, I don't understand why we haven't become best friends yet. And if she ever sees this, maybe she can tell me. But this is set in Ireland. And again, talk about Ireland and Irish writers, amazing year. It's a retrospective novel of a woman now looking back at her college years and beyond, when she was at university, meets her best friend while working at a bookstore on campus. Her kind of crush that she has on a teacher, and her gay best friend James. What kind of happens? I don't want to really give too much away, other than to say it's really a delight. It's really smart. It is a great way to spend your time with some really wonderful characters, and I just thought it was fantastic. So, Small Worlds by Caleb Azuma Nelson. The year that Open Water came out, that was one of my top books of the year. So I'm really glad that there's no sophomore slump with Caleb. I think he is a poetic writer, and I literally mean that. I literally mean that literally. His writing is like poetry. Again, I did this on audio. He reads the book, and it's perfection. It's sublime. He's just a really beautiful writer that really captures emotion in its essence, but in the most succinct way. There's no overwriting. He has complete brevity when it comes to his writing, but what he's able to get across with very little is so powerful. And I just think he's crazy talented. So check it out. Speaking of crazy talented, one of my favorite writers, Dennis Lehane, Small Mercies. It's been a while since I picked up a Dennis Lehane book, and I think I've read practically everything. If you're new to Dennis Lehane, I would say check this out by all means, but then go back to his very first novels, which are the Patrick Kinsey and Angie Gennaro books. They're a detective team, and they have about 3 or 4 books together. Among them is Gone Baby Gone, which I know was turned into a movie with Ben Affleck. He's just fantastic. Almost all of his books are set in and around Boston, which is where he grew up. He knows the world so well. This one is about a true incident of when the Boston public schools begin to integrate with the black schools. And one woman, Mary Pat Feeney, I believe is her name. Fennessy, Mary Pat Fennessy. Her daughter is going to be a senior at the school. She is one of the women who is strongly opposed to this happening. when a murder takes place and that her daughter might be involved in. It is an incredible character. Again, I went between audio and the book on this. Robin Miles, who is a big audiobook reader, does a tremendous job with this. It's really lays bare race relations. And Dennis Lehane, the books are violent, I'm not going to lie. But gosh, what a great book. Once you set off, strap yourself in because you're in for a ride. A Booker finalist this year, Tan Chuang Ng's The House of Doors. This was the first book of his I'd ever read, and we were fortunate enough to have him on the Gaze Reading podcast this year. He is just a delightful man. This is about when M. Somerset Maugham goes to visit a war friend of his in Malaysia, he and his wife. And this is what the third book that Ang has set in Malaysia, which he now refers to as his Malaysian trilogy. And he said the next book is not going to be in Malaysia. But he brings along with him his lover. But the real story is kind of his relationship that he develops with his friend's wife and her friend who gets involved in a scandal, which becomes the impetus or the inspiration for Mom's story, the letter, which Ang has said this book works as a companion piece to that. And then I ended up reading that as well. And it's really interesting. So, but it is gorgeous writing. I was kind of blown away. Also, just on a side note, like one of my favorite covers of the year, I think this thing is so gorgeous. So if you're a fan of historical fiction, I would say absolutely pick this up. Guys, we're moving so fast. We're almost done. The Look Back Window by Kyle Dillon Hertz. Again, really fortunate that he came on the Gaze Reading podcast, a debut novel. I would say this book is for all of you people who loved and are missing a little life and kind of leaned into the brutality of that. This is for you. This is not going to be for everybody. That said, I thought it was a brilliantly written, honest, brutal book about a young man who, when he was young, was repeatedly sexually assaulted, basically used as a prostitute. And he is now taking legal action against the man who did this to him. Legally, there's a small window of time when a victim can go back and still prosecute someone, which is called the look back window. So that's where the title comes from. But it's his story. It is dark, it is brutal, but strangely, in that, there is a lot of beauty in the survival story, and the writing is just incredible. So I really loved this. And yeah, I thought it was great. Also, a debut novel, Bellies by Nicola Dinan. This is the UK edition because A, I wanted a signed copy, and B, I didn't really like the American cover. It looks like a rom-com, and that's not what this is. This is a much more thoughtful, intelligent story about a couple, a millennial couple, a gay couple, one of whom announces that they are going to transition, and what it does to their relationship and further their friends and their kind of larger circle. It was like nothing I've ever read before. Like I thought it was truly the kind of modern romance of our time right now. And that's what I loved so much about it. It's really honest. It doesn't shy away from having uncomfortable conversations. It's not this book that has a neat little bow on it. It asks a lot of questions. It doesn't necessarily give you all the answers. And I just felt it handled a really complicated story and issues with such interesting sensitivity. So I loved it. I was really excited to read that the team behind Normal People, the Normal People adaptation of the Sally Rooney novel, is going to make this a series as well. And I can't wait to see who they cast and what they do with it. So highly recommend that. All right. S.A. Cosby's All the Sinners Bleed. I'm a huge S.A. Cosby fan. I've loved everything he's written, but this is truly his best. Again, one of the things I've noticed through these books that I've been pulling is I generate towards dark. I generate towards brutal. This is, again, one of those books. This is about a newly elected black sheriff in a southern town that has very strong racial lines drawn. And the opening scene alone is so riveting, but there is a serial killer loose in the town, and how he goes about catching him. This is one of those things, once you're in, you're not going to put it down. I guarantee it. It's great. And he is great. And if you are not familiar with S.A. Cosby, all of his books are really fantastic. But again, this one for me is like his masterpiece. All right. And my final book of this 10, I just have been talking about this recently, which is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. This, again, is it's classified as a horror novel that is set in a fictionalized version of the Dozier School for Boys, which was a real-life school that did unspeakable things to the boys that were in that school, both black and white children, but a lot of the truly heinous stuff that happened to black children. She takes that, and she had a relative who actually died at the Dozier School. And so she takes that story and takes a young boy who gets put in the school and his sister who's trying to get him out. Their father is a black activist who people are calling for his lynching, and he has gone off to Chicago, and their mother has recently died, so they're living with a relative. And actually, they're living on their own, but being watched over. But so the narrative goes between the boy and the girl. It is fantastic. And I say for you, if you're not a horror reader, you could read this. There are horror and fantastical elements to this, but it's not like a terrifying, that kind of book. I didn't find it that way at all. There are ghosts and there are definite things that go on in the reformatory, but generally speaking, I would say it's more like fiction with a sprinkling of horror. So, great book. And I can't wait to see, she has a whole backlist, which I've never read. This is the first time I've read anything by her. So I'm really excited next year to kind of dive into more of her stuff. Okay, so that is the group. Let me know if you responded to any of these. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know if any of these are on your list. Next week, I will be here with my top 10 of the year, my final 10. So I will see you then. I hope you're all having a great week, and I will see you all soon.